welcome to another edition of Touchstone's Music. Now, normally I feature music and albums from the 1960s. Today, however, we're setting the notches, the controls of our musical time machine ahead a few notches to feature a breakthrough album from one of my all-time favorite bands, one which I'm not going to admit just because I'm only doing the 60s, and it's not my fault they didn't start recording to the 70s. The year is 1973. The album is TRES HOMBRES by ZZ Top. Let's listen to a clip from Waiting for the Bus.
Been waiting for the bus all day.
That should give you an idea what we're in for here and who these guys are, especially in those days. Now, the interesting thing about these folks, who are, by the way, Dusty Hill on bass and vocals, Frank Beard on the bottom there on drums, and Billy Gibbons, guitar and vocals. So many fans know them from their Eliminator days, from MTV and so forth. TRES HOMBRES is actually the record that initially broke the band through in the musical marketplace long before MTV was a gleam in somebody's eye. Also, the first song, They're Waiting on the Bus, is a good example. Waiting for the Bus is a good example of why they were such a populist band, because they wrote about populist ideas, particularly Texan populist ideas. So Billy Gibbons formed the band when his previous one, the Moving Sidewalks, folded. They were actually quite a well-known band in Texas. His name for the new group, ZZ Top, was to imitate other artists like B.B. King, for example, who would incorporate initials into their stage names. That's why he came up with it. After some initial lineup changes, Frank Beard from the Texas rock band American Blues was confirmed as the band's drummer. And his ex-bandmate, Dusty Hill, was brought in on bass and vocals. And this trio lasted long enough to celebrate their 50th anniversary together, if you can imagine that, before Hill's passing in 2021 brought this famous collaboration to a close. ZZ Top recorded its first two albums, first album in 1971 and Rio Grande Mud in 1972, to some minor acclaim. TRES HOMBRES, however, their third studio record, was released in the summer of 1973, and this became the hit album the band needed to reach the next level. And reach it they did. It was recorded in Robin Hood Studios in Texas and also Argent Studios in Memphis. The producer was Billy Ham, ZZ Top's long-term manager and often considered the fourth ZZ Top member, although of course he didn't play on stage. It was released in July of 1973 on London Records. Made number 8 in the U.S. Billboard 200, very respectable, and the single from that was La Grange, which we'll hear a clip from shortly. Now, the album title, TRES HOMBRES, is Spanish for three men, so that kind of explains where they got that. Their marketing approach deliberately stressed their Texas roots. For example, when I bought the original album, it had a gatefold interior, and it is what it is a photo of loaded food platters from the famous Leo's Mexican restaurant in Houston, Texas, which the group used to frequent. Very Tex-Mex style culinary, is that the right word? Now, I recall finding this album in a department store record bin sometime in 73, 74. I was looking for something other than the British blues rock that dominated my record collection at that time. When I bought the album sort of on spec, I don't know if I'd heard the band at this point. I don't think I had. I was immediately hooked, however. The guitar tone, the strong song hooks, the lyrics and vocals really struck a chord, pun intended, for me. And on the strength of this record, I subsequently purchased their previous two albums, who I had already mentioned. So you'll notice that all the songs on here are written by members of the band. We've already heard a clip from Waiting for the Bus, the first song on side one of the vinyl. Let's listen to the follow-up song on the same side there, Jesus Just Left Chicago. We'll listen to a quick clip from that.
Jesus just left Chicago.
Listen to the bass. In fact, listen to this rhythm section. I mean, I know Billy Gibbons is kind of the frontman in a sense, although Dusty Hill, of course, shared vocals and frontman duties with him. But Billy was sort of the man in one sense and did a lot of the songwriting too, and collaborated on it. But the bass and drums combination of Dusty Hill and Frank Beard, I'm telling you, that is, as a bit of a musician myself, that is a rhythm section to die for. These guys are the best. Side two, let's listen to the famous, and then this was the single as well, LaGrange, and this one might strike a familiar chord for you, pun intended.
Well, yeah, it's fine if you got the time.
So there's boogie at its best. The band's marketing approach was conceived by their longtime manager, Bill Ham. His idea was to concentrate on live performances and recordings and to minimize the press's access to the band. He relied on word of mouth from audiences and other musicians to spread the band's reputation. And by golly, did that work. And then, of course, along came MTV, and that was a whole new way of marketing, and that also worked for them. ZZ Top's musical direction would morph over the years, but they would always return to their Tex-Mex blues roots. Their music continues to be a gold standard for blues, boogie, and hard rock. This album has been another one of my touchstones since I purchased it. I hope it will be for other music fans as well. That's all for this edition. This was kind of fun, jumping ahead a bit. As always, until next time, be well. Thanks for joining me.